guess we'll get started. So 12:05, let's call this meeting of the Housing Commission, removing barriers to affordable housing committee meeting to order.
Sounds good.
Take it over, Rachel.
So let me just move this so hopefully everybody can see the screen and everything that I'm sharing.
Can y'all hear Rachel at all?
Can you guys hear me okay? Yes? Okay, I got a thumbs up.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, somebody says I can hear Rachel, great. Okay, perfect. So we have a pretty light agenda today. The primary thing that I want to go over or have you guys discuss is the work plan and upcoming work and kind of parsing out what you want on the agenda for the next couple of meetings. But I also want to give a brief update on the Universal Design Ordinance process that the subcommittee will be working with the Disability Access Office on in this coming year. I have a very brief update on that. And then I forgot one other thing. I did want to make you guys aware of the PTAC schedule. And the next, as we talk about meeting frequency, I will put up the tentative agenda right now for PTAC and the next two items that they have scheduled for removing barriers amendments on the agenda. So I'll do that towards the end.
And what does that mean?
I'm sorry?
The PTAC, what does that mean again?
Oh, yeah, so that's,
Planning Commission Technical Advisory Committee.
What did he say?
Planning Commission Technical Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Review proposed UDC amendments. Most of them are technical experts, a couple of community representatives, and make sure that what's being proposed is actually something that's wise to do and doesn't have any potential detrimental impacts that we may not have considered.
Okay, thank you.
yep. So did you want to start on, we can start on the work plan and let's look at that. So I did not send this out by email to everybody, but I will put it up on the screen here so we can all see the work plan. This was the original work plan and from removing barriers. All I've done is kind of update the timeline from this. So let me minimize this here for a second. So as you guys may remember, the previous iteration of this work group was organized into three sections and had three subcommittees, one focusing on accessory dwelling units and unified development code and updates, proposing amendments for that. The second one was looking at public engagement and outreach, and the third one was looking at cost burden. So they had originally organized the work plan based on those three subgroups. So what I've done in this update is put together the status of items. Let me see if I can relocate this a little bit. Zoom in just a little bit. Okay. So the status of items that we just looked at as far as UDC amendments. So you can see most of them we submitted, some of them we determined needed further discussion. So that will be part of your work plan going forward. Yes, sorry. There is a hand up, Monique.
Sorry, I think if you're trying to show a presentation on your screen, I can't see it on our side. You have it too far off to your right of your screen. So we can see like the little numbers of the PowerPoint.
It was a lovely desktop.
Yes, it is a lovely desktop picture.
Well, thanks.
That's find it
How
on my,
about that? Is that
Yeah.
I was
okay? There we go.
That's what you're trying to show us now.
Yes. Thank you for letting me know. There we go. So everybody can see this, correct? The work plan. Okay,
No,
so
but I-
everything that I was just talking about is all visualized here in the work plan. Jim, you had something you wanted to?
No,
Okay. So what I've done on here, just put together a current status of the items for the UDC amendments, the items that were submitted versus the items that you guys decided as a subcommittee would need further discussion that would be part of the work going forward. On the second page here are the other items that were originally part of the work plan. So looking at other city processes, incentives, and fee waivers. I've updated this, so it's not complete, it's just in process because there's only one component of this that's been completed. And then education and legislation. So what I hoped that you guys would do today is have discussion on which items you want to start working on for the next few meetings in the short term, like over maybe the next 3 months, which items you want to pick off as items that we can consider in that time frame, and then the next 3 to 6 months after that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, and then I'm going to email this. For those of you who are virtual, I'm going to email this to you right now.
We'll give it a second for that to go through.
And in the meantime, you could take a look and get some.
Yeah, because I was trying to on the other phone, so thank you for emailing it.
Mhm. Okay, you should get it in the next second or so. Okay, so I will turn it over to you guys, and
Okay.
as you look through.
Great. Well, I mean, all of these are on our work plan. This doesn't mean that this has to be all that we work on. If there are other items that folks think are pressing, it'll either be some, out of process UDC amendment, or it will be, 5 years from now when we do this again. So my suggestion is that we consider focusing on things that may not actually require a UDC solution, but are more along the lines of shifting the cost burden, as we've discussed previously, because those are the items that I think could be sort of most immediately impactful for our housing developers out there. But that's one kind of tactic we might look at, but I open up the floor and just see what folks think about how we should proceed from here.
And I think I have one addition to this that you guys have already indicated that you want to be part of your work plan, was that universal design ordinance, which is not listed on this sheet,
Okay.
but it's definitely something that you guys have requested to be part of that work plan.
Okay, so what is the timeline for the universal design ordinance?
So-
that may affect?
Right, so right now, the last that I heard is the goal is to get it to city council in October. So there's going to be work up to that point, but that's still being worked on. The full scope of what that looks like is still being worked on, but it does go through an ordinance process, so it will have to go to city council.
So did everyone catch that?
Oh, oh, So is it-
Rachel perfectly fine, so I'm thinking it's because.
but is it picking up anything?
It's picking up your.
Then
I'm just gonna get on a bird.
I'll just move over
We
here.
can almost go.
Is this,
My phone is amazing. Like yours is really good.
Yeah, it almost sounds like when we're speaking to the phone, it sounds like it's underwater or like cutting in and out. Is that what you're getting to? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very, yeah. But
Can you hear me
when,
now?
you're perfect now, yes.
Now you're great.
Hi,
Okay,
Jim.
well,
Never change.
clearly we have some AV issues with this setup, again, but I guess we'll try to get it solved for next time. Melanie, do you want to jump on your phone maybe and join us that way so folks can hear you talk? Rachel, I can do the same if you want to do this. Let me just start off by saying, so we have the Universal Design Ordinance that's coming up, I guess slated for council in October. So we're going to need to work backward from there to figure out, when the preliminary language is coming through to ensure that we have time to do a thorough review of it, do community engagement through the Housing Commission, and ultimately get our recommendations approved through the Housing Commission. So if it's okay with y'all, I'd like to ask staff to go ahead and prepare a schedule and work plan for us to tackle that. Any objections? Okay, good.
So, yeah, we'll add the universal design ordinance. Schedule on that one.
Okay. Yeah, all right, so that's kind of set, because we've got an October deadline. And so the rest of our work plan that we develop, will sort of fill in around the edges and make space for universal design, as we need to. So what I was saying is if you've gotten the email from Rachel, there are a number of items that we sort of punted on, for this UDC amendment cycle because they just required too much discussion. There just simply wasn't time to kind of come to consensus and make sure we understood all the ins and outs of what we were proposing and do a good job of explaining to the community what we were doing and then getting community feedback. So, now we have time. And what I was also saying was, the next UDC amendment cycle is 5 years out. It's always possible for us to do an out of cycle amendment. We need a CCR. I can't imagine that we wouldn't be able to achieve that, but development services would prefer that we do it every 5 years, I think. So I think rather than focusing on when or how we're going to do the next set of UDC amendments, let's focus on how we think we can be most impactful in the short term. So we have these items on our work plan. We have other items that I've been seeing flying around in emails from community members and other advocacy groups that would like us to take up. And I would suggest that we as a committee over the next couple of meetings focus on things which may not necessarily, hey, Jose, may not necessarily require a UDC amendment, or a UDC amendment may just be a component of what's required. I would suggest that we focus on items that are about shifting the cost burden. A perfect example.
Oh, never mind.
What's that?
I had asked if you had an example of that, but Ryan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so a perfect example, is item number 2, right? Street construction standards. Projects that reuse existing buildings or develop an infill parcel of 5 acres or less should not be required to upgrade or improve existing streets or sidewalks. Well, the streets and sidewalks need to get improved, but the affordable housing development shouldn't have to bear the cost of that, right? So in my mind, that's an example of shifting the cost burden, where our committee might interface with neighborhood and housing services and development services and public works, and I don't know who all else, but we can talk to Mark about that and invite folks in and kind of brainstorm about how we do that, and I don't know if there's some opportunities through the housing bond, right, for developing a pool of funds for something like that, or identifying a pool of funds from elsewhere, right? So that's an example of, I think, some meaningful work that we could do in the short term that doesn't necessarily require a change to the Unified Development Code. And I think we could go through all of these and see that there is potentially, some portion of that that's about shifting the cost burden and not necessarily about the UDC. So I just wanted to take a few moments and have the committee discuss. So I'll just open up the floor to hear what folks have to say. And Jose, we're having trouble with the microphone, so you might actually want to jump on your phone. And I'll do the same, so you can have your workstation.
Someone to do something for me in this moment. If I ask you about 5 acres,
To visualize that?
yeah, because there's a reason why I'm asking that question. Hello? I'm sorry, could y'all hear me?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so you were asking to get a visualization of what 5 acres might look like
Yes. How much 5 acres?
for,
Well, we're discussing number 2. And I remember when you sent us this to I don't know, we weren't necessarily voting, but to look at, basically, when you sent us this once before, I remember I had a question about this because there are some very small apartment complexes, like very, very small. So in my head, I wanted to know exactly, like, how big is 5 acres?
It's about a city block.
That's what I thought. Okay. You said a city block, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's different size blocks,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, just roughly.
yes.
Okay. What I thought. Okay. So, and then I understand what Jim was saying, but I guess I'm wondering, like, what if it's in an area where, or let me ask it this way. So, Jim, if this happens to be in an area where the streets are horrible, like it's just really, really bad, and there's going to be some development right there, you're saying that that the cost shouldn't fall on the builder, that should be a city cost?
I think so. I think that I'm not saying it necessarily has to be a city cost. Can you hear me?
A little bit. Go ahead.
But I think that that's what we want to explore. What are the options that we have for ensuring that those streets get improved and those sidewalks get created, while not necessarily having the affordable housing developer have to finance the cost of that.
Okay. I was in agreement with that. If that's something that's existing that the city should fix, because my concern is if it's in a very, very low income area, the residents have to keep contending with those bad streets. And if the builder doesn't fix it, like, is there a way to make the city fix those areas? Or will it still end up falling on the affordable builder anyway?
I think, this is Pete. I think that's a great discussion to have, right? Like what are the city of San Antonio's programs and mechanisms to improve
Right.
the streets in different areas?
Right.
And I think what this would take on would be to bring in like Public Works, who can talk about their improvement program, their capital improvement program, on the scheduling out of different streets. So for instance, if say I want to build a project along Fredericksburg Road, I hope that's not a TxDOT street, but anyway, it just an example. And obviously there's some sidewalk improvements that need to be done as part of it. Does the city already have a plan to improve that road, right? And if they do, well, then they shouldn't require us to pay for that cost if it's already in the plan to be improved.
Right.
Now, what could happen is maybe we work with the city to request that they add that street to their improvement plan. And maybe it's going to be 3-4 years out by the time they get to it, but at least the street gets moved up, right, in priority. So we don't have to bear the cost of building it, then have to charge more in rent to make up the cost. So I think that would be a conversation that this committee could have with folks at Public Works, and whoever else would need to, we would need to bring in.
Okay, and I appreciate that, Pete, because again, I was agreeing with what Jim was saying, but I've been in so many areas where the new development is beautiful in this low income area, but the streets and sidewalks are horrible. And you see moms pushing their kids over these bumpy side, it was just horrible. So I was trying to understand who will get the cost. Can the city be made to take care of it, or to be able to help the residents? Is that going to be a cost that the affordable builder has to eat? So that would be my question with that. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
So one of the issues that we have to think about is balancing one of the reasons that Jim is bringing this up, particularly, is if we try to address the interest in the SHIP to really start getting deeper affordability into these deals, is that when we create that deeper affordability, we collect a lot of less rent, which impacts the amount of mortgage, and so that the project to provide the deeper affordability is already having to deal with a lot of issues just to get the project built. When you require a project that has that deep affordability to deal with hundreds of feet of city street or hundreds of linear feet of sidewalks, it becomes financially infeasible. And so I think that we, sort of to Pete's point, is that the city should be looking to create a fund that a developer could access and inform the city that they're putting in this development with this level of affordability, and then have the city provide the funding to improve that, infrastructure. Also, with tax credits, it becomes really tricky because there are limitations to how far and what type of expenditure you make that is considered to be an offsite cost, that you can't really get any benefit in terms of the amount of tax credits that you raise. So I think that this is a key item as it relates to really creating, deeper affordability in these projects.
Okay.
And, I'm wondering can you all hear me now?
On my phone.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jim, we can.
I turned it down there, so it's not feedback, echo. No one's sitting in.
Should I be on my phone or should I be here?
You can sit right there on your phone.
On my phone. Okay. All right. Sorry, everyone. This is really something. Okay.
Yes.
So I actually think that this item number 3 sort of falls into the same category. And if this is about developing a set of programs to deal with these offsite costs, maybe 2 and 3 are actually kind of the same item. Different agencies may be involved depending on the ultimate solution set, right? SAWS and CPS as opposed to Public Works or what have you. But I think conceptually it's the same kind of solution set. Do you all agree?
Yes, and I'm seeing nods on
Yes.
screens. Yes.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so we have 2 and 3 for the next
Jim, is
meeting, looking at.
One Water the same thing too?
Maybe, that's just, it's stormwater is such a kind of difficult beast to tackle. I think we could,
Don't know.
we could talk about it in that context as well. I think it may be less applicable. I think the easy one is number 2. Number 3 could be a little more challenging. 4, perhaps.
I think, Jim, could we set forward to aside as a separate meeting? That is probably the one item that I get most pushback from people in the community, and particularly in areas of the city where there are a lot of drainage issues, and so that I think if we could dedicate a meeting to that one by itself.
And I will say on number 4, if I recall correctly, the last PTAC meeting, they wanted to address all the stormwater items at once, because there was a lot of amendments submitted by stormwater on updates to that appendix, and they wanted to discuss all of those at once. And I'll see if I can figure out which meeting that is, so that we can include stormwater in the discussion, but we're not competing with PTAC's schedule on those updates.
Okay. I think 5 is also a separate meeting, right? I mean, that's getting, Homer and whoever else from Parks in here and just sort of talking through and, sort of understanding all of the ramifications of that. He didn't sound totally opposed, but it's kind of a different solution set.
Okay.
And then I think 6 is probably a separate meeting too. That's like let's get a whiteboard up and let's draw some pictures and let's get Google Earth and let's talk about what we mean by that.
I'm going to pause. Any of you joining virtually have questions, comments, feedback on what was just proposed so far? Okay. Hi, Michael Taylor. Okay. So from what I'm understanding so far, 2 and 3 will be February, March, April timeframe. Then looking at 4 being a separate item after that, 5 and 6 also being separate items after that. It'll be ongoing at the same time. Yeah. Most likely I will coordinate with Debbie on the timeline that because I think it's still in the works, and then we'll weave it in. Yeah.
What about 7? Because that
one's already submitted. So if you look over
sorry.
On the status. Yeah. So 7 through 14, you shouldn't have to, those are already submitted. I'll just give you guys updates on when those go before PTAC, so that you guys can be aware and participate in the discussion when it comes up. And then onto the second page, 15 going forward.
So where did that come from?
Which?
Number 15.
This is part of your charge. That's where it came from. It's part of the charge, but there's no specifics within that.
So what?
There's no specifics within that. It's part of the charge from the Housing Commission for the subcommittee.
Speaks to making sure that street plans.
Can't hear whoever.
By the way, the speaker's not working. You got to get on WebEx.
Yep.
I think that
It's not any better.
So who
Can you just deal
I'm
either
asking
Jim or-
where this came from. How did this get on this list? Do we know?
This is the language
Rachel, can your hand sit on your phone? We can't hear it online at all.
They can't hear you.
Yeah, we're just getting. Yeah.
Okay, so, sorry. This was on the agenda in the previous iteration of the work groups. I did not update any of this from when this was finalized in 2020.
So, Jim, is this to talk about timing? You know, to where when you're dealing, say, with like the tax credit process, and you have to go through some of these city agencies that we start, I'm not sure that I understand.
I don't know where this came from. I don't recognize any of it, and they seemed like pretty sort of. I mean, we know what the answers to all those questions are, right? I mean, we know what the process is. So is it? I mean, are they asking for us to create a chart for people to understand the flow? Because Development Services has done a number of those over the years, and with the new ADU thing, we'll need one. You know, maybe that's something that LISC could participate in.
Mm-hmm. On the ADU, yeah.
Clarify guidelines. The UDC has an unclear process and no guidelines.
So we can also remove stuff off of this work plan if it's not aligned with what you guys want to do, but as long as it's still aligned with the charge and the charter for that.
Yeah, I don't know what 15 and 16 mean.
Okay.
Frankly.
Yeah, it seems like it would fall pretty deep into DSD's lap.
Yep.
Not this.
Oh, now I can't hear Jordan.
Yeah, I agree, Jordan.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Jordan?
He said
Yeah, I would
that.
say that this
Go ahead, sorry.
is definitely DSD's lane.
Okay, gotcha.
I would punt that over to Michael Shannon and say, "Here you go, happy birthday."
Okay,
And I would just get rid of number 16. I don't know.
Okay. You don't know where it came from?
I don't know what it means.
Okay. So 15 and 16 or just 16? To remove.
Yeah, that's. No, because I don't recognize it, and if it's on this sheet, it came from somebody.
I think what these documents came from the goal committee, so I'm ready. Makes number 10.
Yeah.
When they were referring to the mission structure, like what I said earlier, is that I think that they're giving it city
Processes.
and a function meeting in terms of we know we want to set the ready and make sure that this plan.
So it's a general guideline.
Could one of you please repeat that for those of us at home? We couldn't hear.
Y'all, I'm not sure.
Public comments. These sound like public feedback concerns.
Hold on. Can we pause for a moment?
Yes,
This
let's
is not
pause.
working.
If you did put somebody's phone on speaker, would they be able to hear us collectively? As long as we all.
I think we're going to need to reschedule this meeting. I'm sorry. I'm afraid that we're not getting feedback from folks that we need. I think we've got enough information to begin to craft the work plan. Rachel, I would suggest you go ahead and start that based on the feedback you've heard today.
If you guys you can hang up if you're not gonna.
Start that based on the feedback you've heard today and give us the opportunity to provide some feedback to you in writing. We'll collect up all of that and see if we can make some decisions between now and the next meeting about the agenda for the next meeting, probably starting with items number 2 and 3.
Okay.
But if folks, have other thoughts, we can certainly do that. And let's absolutely get this virtual meeting thing figured out before next time.
Do you guys want to meet in person in the next meeting as well as virtually?
I think we need to have the option.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy meeting totally, because if we're all virtual, we generally don't have these problems.
Right.
We're having, the problem is in the space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's trying to do both, trying to do it in a
Yeah.
conference room and virtually. It just doesn't work.
Agreed.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do all virtual, Sarah says, for the next meeting, and
Yes.
and it'll work.
Okay, so since we're on timeline, let me go back one real quick. So I just want to give a quick update on the Universal Design Ordinance. This came from the Disability Access Office. So I did request for someone to come to give you guys a more detailed update, but they literally are in the process of making finalizations to the timeline. So it's too in flux to give a detailed update at this time. So what I have for you guys at this point is that they are going to be focusing on the ordinance updates, as well as updating design manuals and education materials in anticipation of that, the ordinance updates. There was a couple of amendments submitted by the Disability Access Office for UDC amendments, but the bulk of the work will be going through the ordinance update process through City Council, and then it will update the UDC through that process. So as of right now, the timeline that we have for that is October 2022. And we'll get a better timeline for you guys, hopefully in the next meeting. And then I did want to get to, so we can schedule the next 2-3 meetings. Did you guys, so I put up there the next couple of PTAC meetings. There's one on Monday, but there are no removing barriers amendments being considered in that meeting. But in the following meeting on the 22nd, there are 2. So if you wanted to participate in that, you can go to DSD's website, and they have on their meeting videos, there's a live stream on there. So you can participate that way, or you can go to the DSD boardroom, which is where those meetings occur. Yes.
Hey, John, quick question on that. So the other day when I looked at the PTAC's website, the agenda didn't show what they were actually considering. Are they now showing which amendments they're considering for which meeting?
Yes. So if you go to the website, tentative PTAC agenda, because I just did it like an hour before this meeting.
Great. You must have seen that
So
first
it
meeting.
lists them all, and then you can click to see which ones are being considered. Most of these are live links. 1 or 2 don't work yet, but most of them are connected.
And just a word of caution, I mean, it changes constantly because
Yes.
they're not always able to get through as much.
Very
as
tentative.
Yes, very much so. So definitely check, before the meeting.
Yes. So this is what they have as of today, like an hour ago.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on setting up a regular schedule for this. So does first Friday or second Friday of the month?
Can we do that by email?
Sure. Is it? Okay. So just everybody look out for an email from me to confirm the schedule. Hopefully we can get this going for the next 3 to 6 months and put them up online and everything. Okay.
Rachel,
Any
Pete
last-
suggested that you send a poll so we can
Yes,
decide.
I can send a poll. Yes. Go for it. That was a new one that was added. And I believe, oh no, that was one to remove the electrical connection for the primary structure for ADUs.
Okay. What else you got, Rachel?
That's all I have.
Okay, sorry about all the technical difficulties today, folks.
Yes, me too. Very sorry. Hopefully we can get this all scheduled up. I will send out WebExes once we get this finalized, and feel free to reach out to me and everyone by email, and we can, you want to call it? Good?
Yeah. Okay. We'll see y'all at the next meeting. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.